want to say thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for bringing your years of industry expertise onto this call with us today. So, with that being said, we're going to move into kind of the objectives of the call today and what the agenda is. So, number one, we are going to make this a little bit more conversation focused. We don't believe in death by slides or death by PowerPoint. We'll be kind of using this slides as kind of a framework around our conversations and what we'll be talking through and what we see with these companies. So, first things first is we'll be kind of covering into what we currently see in the current state of agriculture, legacy and disconnected systems, and what some companies and forward-looking ag companies are moving into and looking towards for the future in their technology advancements. Then we'll turn it over to John and Keith, and they'll be talking through speed of technology and its impact in agriculture, where we'll kind of dig into Keith's background and John's background, and they'll be kind of having a good conversation about how fast technology, what technology has come from across all these different decades and what the future holds within this area. Then we'll also talk into why cloud, of course, and why AI matter now. AI is the hot topic on the market. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's hearing about it. But a lot of times companies are like, how do I do it? What do I do it with? And what is my immediate ROI or business impact with AI? So we'll be kind of talking into that. Same thing as well with understanding AI within agriculture and agribusiness for you guys. And then the next step, we'll do questions and answers, of course. Please feel free to put answers in the chat or raise your hand or anything along those lines, and we'll be happy to talk through those things. And then we'll close out the end of the webinar, and we'll say thank you guys again for giving us your time and attention. So, with the first thing here is within the current state of agriculture that we see in today's world is a disconnected area of solutions, right? So, within the agriculture business, there's a lot of old software that still runs a lot of these agriculture companies, right? What is kind of happening is that some of them are immediately announcing, hey, we're going end of life. We don't plan to move our software to the cloud. We have IT resources that are retiring. They're reaching retirement age. They can no longer support. We have aging IT infrastructure. We still have on-prem servers. And what is happening is it's increasing complexity across the enterprise, right? So you're seeing data live in different silos. Data is not easily accessible. There's been legacy business processes that have been created on the side outside of that software that have just become kind of industry or company knowledge. And, with all this being together, it kind of creates these manual labor redundancies across the entire enterprise for people to get their jobs done, right? And it creates these very interesting things that we like to call challenging business processes or just really badly structured areas of business that are just causing a lot of pain and suffering, right? So when a CFO comes forward and said, hey, I need reports on these, where I stand with my contracts or anything like that, that takes sometimes weeks, days, weeks, months to get that through. And it hinders a lot of growth within an agricultural business. And so that's something that we have seen time and time again, both from a Boyer standpoint and Leverage, when we talk to agriculture companies about, hey, this is where we're at. We're looking to move forward. We're looking to figure out how we can use AI and how we can better our business and how we can continue to grow naturally and organically. So talking about Microsoft Dynamics 365, Microsoft Dynamics 365 is a full cloud solution of software that was architected and built by Microsoft to offer an end-to-end composable business applications to meet the business in every single part. So, for example, Dynamics 365 Finance Supply Chain Management is an ERP system that is fully cloud-based, has a lot of great native functionality out of the box for agriculture businesses to utilize, and then also all supported with connecting into a lot of the productivity tools of Microsoft Teams, Outlook, PowerPoint, Power BI, those types of things. And it's all built on top of Azure, which is the leading cloud provider within the market, really. And so what this kind of does is it allows these agriculture businesses to move from these very disconnected systems, siloed data across the enterprise, broken business processes everywhere, allows them to bring this together into one platform and one business area so that data all comes from the same system. So you have one single source of truth for data. You have one single source of truth for business processes and how the business is operating. And that just creates really a playground, as I should say, for great reporting for an agriculture business to be able to pull the right reporting, being minutes, hours behind rather than being days, weeks, or months behind, right? So you get that real time feel, those real time analytics. And with that, with having all your data in a centralized platform in a centralized area, that kind of opens up and unlocks the door to utilize AI. There's a saying in this industry that I've heard a lot, and everybody probably has heard it around, is bad data in is bad data out, right? So if you're trying to plug AI into a system with bad data, bad architecture, bad data sets, everything along those lines, most likely the result that's going to be pumped out from that AI or those LLMs, it's going to be bad. It's going to give you inconsistent results, might give you wrong calculations, might give you wrong numbers, might give you numbers that are behind, anything along those lines. But when you bring it all into a singular scalable platform, into a singular platform to be, massaged and work together with native AI built on top of it, like Microsoft and Copilot, you then unlock a real opportunity for agents and for native reporting, and where can we invest some more money into, how do I make my employees' jobs easier? How do we make our farmers' lives easier? How do we make this a better customer service? How do we provide a better experience for our farmers and our growers and whoever you're servicing within the industry? So that's kind of what happens and what conversations we've had recently with customers. And I know the Levridge team as well, given their experience and what they've been doing within the industry, they've definitely been having those conversations, and it's moving quickly and it's moving fast. So we want to make sure that, when that happens, you guys are prepared. You guys are ready for the future. And then with that unlocks the growth, right? It unlocks the next phase of what you guys are going to move into, whether it's expanding operations, whether it's looking to, grow different lines of business, whether it's to expand transportation, whatever it might be for you guys. When you have a single scalable platform with good data in, and you're able to build AI on top of it, really the possibilities kind of become endless. So with that being said, I am now going to hand this back over to John and Keith and let them kind of talk about, with all this new technology that's happened, how fast has it come? Where has it come from? What's the experience behind it? And then what are companies looking forward to moving into?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Cole. I think that's the perfect way to introduce this topic, because we do see a lot of companies that have multiple software legacy ERPs because of consolidation. But through consolidation, they don't want to take one side to, one ERP to the other, or vice versa, because they just don't see any path towards the future on either one of them. So, when you talk about disconnected systems, that is very real and out there a lot because of all the consolidation that's happening in the industry. So, so that's a great way to open the topic and open the discussion. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd really like to, we're talk about the speed of technology, and as you all are aware, things are changing fast. I mean, they're changing lightning fast nowadays, and it's been this continual progression towards speed of technology. But I thought what we would do is take a little look back, kind of as a history, and think about how that technology has changed in agriculture ERP, and who better to do that than Mr. Keith Bangasser, who Keith, in your opening remarks and introduction, you kind of mentioned that you've had this experience back to the 90s, with Ascendant, into the 2000s with Cinch, and now with Levridge, as architecting a lot of these systems. So I'd like to get your take on, what you've seen as the changes, and how did technology evolve back when you started compared to where we're at with Levridge on D365?
Well, I'd be glad to share that with you, John. So one of the things, it started in the mid 80s already. But anyway, at that point, back in the 80s, what we were doing is really taking, when the personal computer was kind of introduced, and now we're doing accounting on a PC, right? So that was really kind of when I first kind of started. But at that point, I wasn't designing any software. I was just learning, the business and how software worked, right? But back in those days, Well, and what reminds me of, I picked up a postcard from the 1950s, and it said, "Hey, having a good time here at Yellowstone," and the address on there was to me in Spicer, Minnesota, MINN. They used the abbreviation, the four letters MINN, or for the state, and now we would just use two, because what was going on back in those days is that data storage was at an absolute premium, right? So if you could do the state with two letters, you did it, because you got to save, 3 or 4 letters. And why that's so important is because they did that to the date too. So they did month, day, year, two-digit year. Well, what happened then come the 90s is, we're not Y2K, because I can't go from 1999 to 2000. So during that late, in the mid to late 90s, then when we were doing Ascendant, the technology was really about, hey, now we have the personal computer technology, right? And now we have hard drive space. So we have all kinds of space. So that part of my career, we were just adding, we had bigger codes or identifiers for like customer ID. They could be 15 characters long. Numbers could be 17 characters long with 6 decimal points. We went crazy in being able to just expand the amount of data we were capturing like never before. And so that was what was going on in the 90s. And then we, at that point too, a lot of the reporting was just, we just print it on paper, right? If there's any, you want to report, we print the report to paper. So that in 1993, when I started with Ascendant, we were just adding a lot of data, and we built on top of Dynamics and Dynamics GP back in those days. So I don't know, John, did you have any of those? Did you? And I know some of our people in the industry still have technology that was built on those really small codes, right? That a two-letter or a 2-number digit for this or a 2-number digit for that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think about it as back when you were starting in the 80s and the 90s, it was all about moving onto the PC, the personal computer.
Mm-hmm.
Into the 2000s, I think it kind of migrated more towards how do we become more efficient in doing, optimizing our business process, right? And you start talking about, like, okay, how does data storage work? Still on-prem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how do we kind of make it so I can do things a little bit faster, and really into the 2000s, maybe the 2010s, was really about integrating with other solutions. How do I kind of make things so I don't have to manually enter things into the system, right? Remember, I think about scale tickets. Scale tickets not very long ago were entered manually into the system, right? And now there's APIs and other integration strategies to be able to kind of bring in data, seamlessly. You know what I mean? But still on-prem. And so what I also think about is why this is relevant to the future is that a lot of companies that we work with and talk to are still using those solutions that were built in the early 2000s or before, 90s or even the 80s. And that's I think what's key is that there's been this, the speed of technology has changed so much. As a matter of fact, I mean, think about how long ago cell phones were not a thing. I mean, it wasn't more than a decade ago that they were kind of in their new advent of. But nowadays I can go on my cell phone and I can just, without even opening my cell phone, I can see how much gas I have in my pickup. I can see what the weather's like. I can see my messages. I haven't even opened up my cell phone. So, think about how fast that's changed. But yet, agriculture ERP hasn't kept up with that, right?
Well, and connectivity too, John. Back then you couldn't even really connect 2 locations. We had a grain elevator with 2 locations or facility. How do you even do that? Well, you built these wide area networks, you leased lines, and all that stuff was really expensive, to do now. But since the advent of the internet, that changed a lot too, right? Made the connection to be able to do a wide area network and a local area network. That all started to happen, but that got expensive, right? So when you look at, and then came security, and when security, and how do you secure an on-prem server, a wide area network, and all those sophistications that come with it. So that's when we really started to get to the cloud, right? When you look at the total cost of ownership between the security, the wide area network maintenance, all those type of tools, it's time to move to the cloud.
Yeah, and I mean, and that opens up a whole lot of possibilities, because now you're moving to the cloud, especially if you're moving to the cloud on a platform like Microsoft's platform, of course, which is what Leverage is built on, because it opens up a suite of tools for you to be able to utilize your data in ways that you haven't been able to before, right? And of course, and we'll get into the AI piece of it a little bit further down, but then what does that mean for the future in terms of how you interact with your ERP? It just opens up so many doors for systems. Now Keith, when we talk about data specifically, how did data, like, it seems like we've had this migration of how data is how data is stored or how data is kind of compiled.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. So back in the olden days, we just printed a report, right? We just remember green bar paper. Did you ever see a report on the green bar paper? Just print it out, stack it up. And then, in the mid 2000s, we showed more of those rows and columns. We showed it to the screen rather than the paper. And so here's a great example of rows and columns. This shows, customer contracts, and you notice it's got the latitude, longitude there. So this is where this contract is located geographically, which I can read that, rows and columns and see that. But, starting with going to the cloud and some of the advanced business intelligence and reporting tools, now we can just visualize it. And so not only do you just visualize, that map of where it is, but you can also visualize a whole bunch of data all at once. So this is a dashboard, right? So you can see on the left, hey, who's delivering grain to us today? What percentage of our contracts are delivered? What contracts did we get into today? Where are these contracts at? What's our basis? What's our quality? All of that, all in one page. And the cool part about this, John, you can get this on your cell phone. So you're not tied to a desk to get this type of information. So we've seen a lot of new innovations just in they don't call it reporting anymore. It's visualizations, right?
Visualizations. Yep. And of course, these two slides that we just showed were taken from Power BI, right? Which is, part of the solution set that you'd have access to, through Microsoft Stack. But yeah, it's just, it opens up, having consistent data and data in one database, right? If you've got multiple separate systems, it's hard to really combine all that to get yourself a good view of what your positions are supposed to be, right? Or what they are, so.
Yeah, that's especially important if you have, like you said, your general ledger data is completely separate from your contracts and all that. It's like, how do you even do that today? You can kind of, but it's an awful lot of heavy lift. But with the Leverage product and Dynamics, finance and operations, it's all together. So it makes these reporting lifts these reporting visualizations a lot easier.
Right.
I think.
Well, I mean, we can go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking, one of the things I was thinking is as we move into the, coming into the future where we're going, if you analyze your business, you say, hey, we still need, even in the Leverage, we needed the functionality to run your business efficiently. And we've built a lot of automations. That's one of the things we do with Leverage now, is that we're building a lot of automation into that step. So it's easy to do settlements, they can walk through the wizard with it. Integrations are easier now because it's cloud. And those types of things. But if you really need to be on a spot where you can efficiently operate your business before you can really get started on the future, because day in and day out, you have to do your scale tickets, you have to do your contracts, you need to pay the growers before you can even think about the future.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into maybe the next topic in terms of like, what does the future look like, and why would we think about cloud, and like, why does AI matter now? You know what I mean? And when you think about like the future, well, some organizations are going to be forced into moving because we've heard of end of life of some of these solutions out there. Most notably, just because we're close to Microsoft, Microsoft GP has announced end of life for GP, which of course Cinch and Intellego are on. But they're not the only ones. There's other solutions that have announced end of life as well. So some organizations are going to be forced to move. But you want to move because of more positive thoughts, right? Like, hey, we want to move because of growth, right? And that's where kind of like, why cloud and AI matter now. And if you've got legacy systems You've got legacy risks. I mean, you mentioned a little bit about security. That's huge. That's a big piece of wanting to have a solution that has robust security. But it's more than that. It's also just how you can transact more efficiently. And having integrated operations with streamlined processes on a unified, secure cloud-based ERP is really important to be able to have that backbone for you to be able to get understanding and insight out of your data and out of your operations that you're lacking if you're not on newer systems. And so first and foremost, just kind of the move to the cloud is so important, right? That just sets you up for the future. Now, AI is all over the place, and it's interesting, at conferences that we go to throughout the year. There's been an AI topic on a lot of these conferences for a while now. A year or two. I remember about 14 months ago, I was at the Jeeps conference, and talking. There was an AI talk about how what AI is going to do, and it was at that point it was kind of in the theoretical, right? Hey, this is kind of what we think it's going to do, but nobody really knows what it's going to do. And talk about speed of technology. In the last year since then, now we actually have seen some real life use cases of where AI is going to really impact businesses. Now, I wouldn't say that we're anywhere near the fact that we know exactly how AI is going to, what AI is going to do, but in society, certainly in this industry, this is going to be the major change agent for the next decade. I mean, even the next 5 years, what AI is going to be capable of, and how you're going to be able to use AI to be either more efficient in your business or to gain faster insights into your business is going to be huge. So what does that mean for agribusinesses, right? Well, first of all, you have to be on a platform that supports AI, right? And Cole, we've had discussions with clients that that were on legacy systems that basically said, hey, like I tried to install this AI bot in my system. The data couldn't handle it. It just couldn't read anything because the data is not structured in a way that is useful. So, I mean, first and foremost, you have to be on a system that has the capability in the back end to be able to work with AI, right? And what better solution than Microsoft's Copilot built on top of the stack that Levridge and F&O utilize. And so being able to utilize AI agents, and there's this Microsoft and kind of in the industry, you're talking about the agentic ERP and kind of what's the ERP of the future and how agents are going to affect that. And so for those of you that don't know, what is an agent? Well, an agent is something that works on your behalf, right? And in this frame of reference, a Copilot agent would be something that would be able to perform a duty or task on your behalf. And we've done a lot of work. We're working on that in Levridge. I know Cole, Boyer has kind of Copilot or what is it? Copilot and coffee? Is that what you guys have?
Yeah, Copilot and coffee. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm sure maybe somebody has heard Microsoft say before, if you've listened to any of their calls or presentations or anything like that, is there's something called a frontier firm, and what that means is it's it's partners, but it's also customers and clients that are pushing the frontier of AI, breaking into it, working to build, new autonomous agents for their business, or, how do we drive AI adoption effectively within our business, those types of things. And Boyer, recently, we just got actually recognized by Microsoft for being a frontier firm on the AI front with Microsoft technologies. And so, it's again, it's something that comes up in every single conversation, right? Where can I use AI? How can I use it? Right. And there's so many different business processes and business enhancements that can happen. And, to your point, John, right? It's like, well, we got to get started with the basics, and we got to get started with, what does your data look like? What is your growth look like? And, where can we find the quickest business impact? So, sorry, I'll step off my milk crate. I'll hand it back to you there.
No, that's perfect. I mean,
And
it just points to how important it is to be a forward-thinking like organization and partner with a forward-thinking organization like that, right? And internally in Leverage, like we're trying to find out how to solve and provide a packaged AI agent solution for our customers. Now, I will tell you this. That I don't have a smoking gun right now in terms of like go to market offering, but we're in the process and in the middle of kind of R&Ding what agents look like and how that works, because I'll say it's fairly simple to create an agent. It's a lot harder to make sure you have one that is reliable and can be in a product, right? I mean, and that's you talk about and you hear about hallucinations in AI, and I mean it's a thing. Like, and that's what we're tasked to find is the challenge of how we can create a packaged an AI agent for our customers. And so we're actively working on that, and so it kind of turns the conversation kind of turns more to the kind of the art of what is the possible. And one of the things we're working on now is can we bring in data files, whether it's PDF or spreadsheets or something like that, where AI will be able to read it. And let's just talk about maybe a rail car manifest or something like that, right? A settlement sheet, that can read it. And go ahead, Keith.
John, well, it was fun because I just got off a phone call here a couple hours ago with an agriculture grain elevator company that they buy from commercial grain elevators, right? Or they sell to other grain elevators. Well, the big problem is that, okay, say they've done a unit train and they sold it to a big commercial elevator. They get the scale tickets back, the destination weights and grades, maybe in a spreadsheet, maybe in an email. I mean, all these different kind of formats, even though there is an Industry X standard for Ag XML standard for scale tickets, it doesn't see wide adoption. So one of the big problems is communicating these scale tickets or these unit train movements, from company to company, enter a company. So tell us more about, how that might work in the future as we're working on that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in that specific scenario, it's just like being able to take data as it comes in and be able to kind of like, read it and define the output to be able to then bring in the scale ticket. Let's just say it's a rail car ticket, and be able to populate that automatically and be able to detect nuances in the data, right? If things change or whatever, but you can kind of even think about even further how really AI is going to change the way you interact with your software, right? Maybe instead of hunting and clicking to find how many contracts Bangasser Farms has of corn, how many open contracts, how many bushels there are left, that you can just ask it and it will be able to tell you. You know what I mean? More of that language back and forth. So we're, right now our first task is kind of that first scenario where it's like, let's create an agent that can read data as it comes in and detect the nuances, but the future is going to hold so much more in terms of how you interact and how you kind of extract data.
So John, if I'm doing business with 2 or 3 different elevators and each one of them sends me a spreadsheet of unit train, unit car, each unit car weights and grades in a little bit different format, the idea is that the agent could read that spreadsheet that's attached or the grid attached to the email, parse it apart, and create the scale ticket for them automatically then. And you wouldn't have, and it could all be different formats, but it can read it, can understand what it is, and create the tickets.
And learn from it. And also different formats, right? I mean, maybe there's 3 or 4 different Excel spreadsheets, but what if it's a PDF? How many PDFs get sent out? And this, of course, in this industry, documentation is flowing back and forth in terms of, invoices, settlement sheets, all in different formats, right? And so, yeah, being able to be smart enough to detect the nuances in each of the formats is really important.
The industry
Yeah.
has needed that for
Yeah.
a long time, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, even
Yep.
even we're seeing from a Microsoft standpoint, like they are kind of partnering with partners to build for those specific industry, agents, right? Very specific to agriculture or whatever industry the customer's
Mhm.
in. But then they're also making some just out of the box baked agents. Like for example, we see one that's called Collections Agent. It can go through and say, hey, Bangasser Farms and Pierce Melons are behind in their invoices, and do you want me to write you an email to your contacts over there saying, hey, you're 60 days behind or however long behind, and it'll go and do that. You can check it before and then click send out. It makes that way you're not having to chase through a whole system of data to have to find who's behind and who's the problem children, and then have to go and create that email, and then wait, that takes a lot of time for some of these teams, right? So things like that as well. I mean, just from a high level standpoint, from Microsoft's point of view, is like, how do we even tackle just some of that simple business processes with AI agent? And so that's pretty cool to see what they're doing in those areas as well.
I mean, really, what we're going to target is what are the repetitive tasks and menial tasks that you do
Right.
on a day-to-day basis that can be automated. But not only that, but how it can then learn from events that happen, right? So,
Right. Exactly.
And it really just starts out with being on a system that allows for you to do that. Um, so
Perfect.
is that, yeah. So let me actually, I'm going to start into the question and answer session. But I think honestly, Cole, I'll maybe ask you this. From your perspective, what should forward-looking companies do now when it comes to kind of technology and ERP decisions? And I might harken back to my comments about kind of some of these end-of-life scenarios or whatever. But
Yeah.
what should you be thinking about? What should a company be thinking about right now?
We said, right, end of life of software is key, right? And I want to harp a little bit again on people, right? Um, you know, on those older softwares, these, not to age you, Keith, right? But they're starting to age in the workforce, and we're starting to see them kind of phase out and move into retirement. And so, we've had, we're in the past where customers come forward and they're like, hey, my IT guy who's been with me for 35, 40 years, right? He's ready to retire. He's ready to, hit the motor coach and go down to Florida and live his life, out, right? So, we're kind of in a bind here in that we don't have enough people, or we don't have enough talent right now, or our software, like he's going to take the keys to the castle, right? And so we need to get moving on something else so that it doesn't become just legacy knowledge. It becomes institutional knowledge, easy to document, easy to understand, and easy to train people on. So that's something that we've seen quite a bit, from customers. And then, also another point that you said earlier was growth, right? When you buy, more elevators or more farmland or more processors or whatever you're moving into, you're taking on what we call in the industry technical debt, right? You're taking on IT technical debt. And so, when those start to happen, what happens is you got to integrate those systems in with whatever you're running. And so you're creating different landscapes for infrastructure problems, integration problems, security problems, Keith, right? Because you don't know, how up to date their security is on the back end. And so we have customers who are like, hey, we've come and we've just bought, two brand new elevators companies, and we don't know, like they're trying to migrate it over, and it's just not going to work out. And we're kind of also maybe on an aging legacy stack, or hey, we're on D365 and we actually want to migrate them in, right? And it makes those migrations easier. So those are really some of the key areas we really see. And then we get the edge cases, right? Of like, hey, we want to expand into AI, but we know our internal systems or our internal data is just not in a place where we can use it, or we can safely secure it, or safely, provide good answers and good experiences for our users and for our business. How do we do that, right? How do we look to what the future looks like, and how do we kind of create a culture of innovation and move forward in the business. So I want to say those were kind of the three areas. I think the people one has been kind of one of the bigger things, right? I mean, but it's all something that we've heard in today's age.
And really, I feel like you're kind of talking about preparation, right? Prepare
Yeah.
yourself for the change.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that it's going from one system to a new system is not an easy click the button task, right? So it's preparing those things, your people or your data, to be able to migrate and move. And that's of course where Boyer comes in. That's where the Levridge and Boyer teams together can help with that preparation. So
Yep.
yeah. And so I would say, I know, Cole, I guess I was going to say, no, this is kind of your webinar, but I'll just jump in here and say, if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and add them to the chat, and we'll answer them as we can. So we do have a question: where do you see the biggest impact when an ag company moves to the cloud? Keith, you want to take that one?
Sure. I think mostly total cost ownership, right? Because just you don't have your server farm, you don't have your security people, so kind of reducing or eliminating that and saying, hey, we're in the cloud now. That's probably the biggest impact. The connectivity is nice. People can work from wherever they're at, which has really happened, in the last few years. So you get that in these cloud systems. They can work on an Apple, they can work on a PC, anything with a browser actually works. So that meeting your employees where they're at as far as geographically, that's terrific. You don't have a VPN and all that kind of stuff that holds you back. I guess that's kind of the biggest two. Business intelligence, of course, is the biggest one. Better insights into your data. You can see the data. You can see a lot more data. You can, get better, quicker understanding for management reporting and board reporting, and like even divisional managers can have those dashboards and see that. We see that as a really important piece. I think that are kind of the first three that come off the top of my head.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's huge when you can get rid of the on-premise servers, and not have to worry about that cost anymore, right?
And that headache,
So,
right? The security risk and all that. And like, oh, what happens if my hard drive goes out? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll echo here as well. I think the other two areas that we see is like, for just business process efficiency, right? We hear all the time like, hey, it takes me a week to close my books at the end of the month. Like that is a week of my entire finance team or my CFO or controller, whoever's doing it, right, being out of pocket to help the business and help make more decisions for, having to, reconcile and close books and try to get the month wrapped up. We've seen it cut down to, 48 hours, 3 days, something along those lines. And then I do want to harp again, Keith, on as well as on like the reporting, right? You come from you start to attack things from hey, my data is in real time status and I can quickly pivot faster versus, oh, I got to wait till the end of the month to figure out where I stand on things and everything like that. So the innovation and the quick moves and the quick ability to react to a business needs, or to get ready for the future, get ready for demand, or get ready for that big grow season that's coming, right? Like, hey, we're going to need more operations, or we need more warehouse workers, whatever it is. With having good data and having faster and near real time reporting, it makes you you don't become quite as reactive. You become more proactive. That's a big key. So
let's see here. We have another question in the queue. What if my legacy system still works okay? What are the red flags I should be aware of for the future? I'll take this one. I handed it off to you guys, the other one, so I'll take this one. I mean, we hear this all the time, like, right? It's the systems that we have, people have been on for 20, 30 years, right? So it does what they need it to do right now. So, what are the red flags? It's really kind of relating to preparation for the future. Okay. Now, first and foremost, there's a couple things to point out. There are end of lives that are happening in some of these legacy systems. So obviously there's that to prepare for, but also, if you're not thinking about the future, you're going to be left behind, right? We have clients right now, customers that are actively trying to work on their own on AI agents. Not to mention just what we're going to do and put into the product, but they've moved onto a platform and are trying to solve for these things on their own, and if you're not thinking about what that means for you and your organization's future, you're going to be left behind. And then you're going to be trying to play catch up, and it's going to be a long game of catch up if you don't prepare for that right now. And so the change management internally within your organization is huge. But if you don't think about that now and set the stage for that change, you're just going to be left behind, and that's going to impact your future really.
And and it's that, John, and so true. But also kind of the way you think as you move to the future. So one of the things that I just got off a phone call. Someone has an inquiry screen where they can, see quickly all the different rail car numbers and where that rail car has been and where it should be. And they want a screen that does that. It's like, well, as you get more and more exposed to the artificial intelligence and the way you look and surface and interact with data, maybe not, well, heck, even today, you just ask the system, hey, where is car 50321, right? And it comes back as well, it got shipped on this day on this ticket number. Do you want to see the ticket number or ticket information? Yep. And there it is. So instead of, so it's a whole different way of thinking, even when you're interacting with agents, right? The agent can create a purchase contract. Well, how about I just email the agent, hey, create a purchase contract for Bangesser Farms for 5,000 bushels delivered in July. You don't even think about that way until you start exposing yourself to some of these technologies that are starting to emerge now. And so part of it's a thought process too, and that I think is really compelling.
Yeah.
I don't see any other. Go ahead.
I was gonna add just one little thing as well. That I've read the question here a couple of times, and sometimes I interpret things a little bit differently. And so, what if my legacy system is still working okay? And then what are red flags I should be aware of for the future, right? And so when I hear red flags, I think of like what's being said to me that this software might be going away or might be changing, right? And so we've heard some of our customers say is like, I started to, we're on a homegrown software. We've done a lot of customization, all these things. And we try to, we have a new part of our business, or we have a new business process here. And we tried to make a change, and we emailed them and they're like, hey, we're not making changes actively at this time. Or, that person's no longer here who made that change. We'll get you in touch with somebody else. When you start to hear those little subtle cues when interacting with a legacy software provider, we've had customers say that kind of like starts to flip a switch in the brain saying, okay, this sounds like this might be something that's going to be coming out of support soon, or they're not putting as much time, money, and effort into. And, we need to look at moving forward with it there. And then the other thing too is, just within the industry and talking to peers, right? Like, for example, for John, who is the CEO of Levridge, who was with Arthur Companies, who, made the switch from Dynamics GP Cinch to, D365F and SCM, people coming to him and in peer groups and talking to others and saying, hey, this is starting to kind of look like it's starting to phase out. Are you hearing the same thing? Are you starting to talk about, what you guys are moving to, or, is this, how are you guys doing AI? So those types of things as well. And hearing others in your peer groups talk about that also are sometimes some trigger points for some people to say, okay, yeah, we actually really need to start looking. And, we're hearing this, we're hearing that, they're doing something cool, we want to do that, those types of things. So, as humans, we all like to communicate. So communication usually tends to, trigger the most for us. So, sorry, just wanted to add that there as well.
Oh, well said, Cole. So I haven't seen another question here. Cole, should we bring this home or land the plane, so to speak?
Yeah. Let's wrap up the farming for the night if we can, right? I know, well, sometimes we farm through the night. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you guys, everybody who joined today. Thank you for giving us your time and attention in this webinar. And